get into it. We are talking about Write Like Only You Can this week. We've been doing the themes, or I guess I should say I've been doing the themes, but we've been doing them together. Hey, Sean, thanks for joining. We've been doing the themes of, and this theme for April was all about finding your authentic voice. And this is me trying to navigate my computer and talk at the same time. It doesn't really work. Hey, but yeah, so we've been talking all of April about finding your authentic voice. And next month or next week, it's May, right? It's already May. So theme is going to change, and I'm going to be talking about book marketing without burnout. And that's book marketing without burnout, but also without feeling gross about it. I've been doing a lot of research on this. The number one thing I hear people tell me about book marketing is I don't like to feel salesy. I don't like to feel gross. I don't like to share myself. I 100% agree with you. And I have been researching for years, honestly, but especially recently, like the last couple of months, how do we market without feeling kind of disgusting and salesy and without doing the, buy my book, buy my book. Have you seen my book? Because nobody likes that. So that's what we're going to be starting as the theme for May. Show up and shine, book marketing. If I could speak, this is why I'm a writer, guys. Book marketing without burnout and feeling disgusting about it. But that is a next week thing that we're going to be talking about. This week, we're going to finish up with how to show up authentically everywhere, which is part of our April theme, Write Like Only You Can. And I actually am organized today, and I have the questions that were submitted to me. So we're going to be going over those. But I invite everybody to ask me any questions. You can send them to me through opportunities at substack.com. Send me your questions. I will at some point get a tripod for my phone, so I'm not constantly giving you guys whiplash trying to get my phone centered. That'll be a next week problem thing. But yeah, so I do have those questions. I'm going to answer those at the end, but I want to go over a little bit about Write Like Only You Can. And I had started out, I shared a story, personal story, because I like to equate all of this to my real experiences so that you know I'm not just saying this stuff. This is stuff that I have actually tested and tried and experienced myself. And so, how writing, I'm going to say showing up authentically in general, not just writing, but the reason why it's so important to show up authentically. I shared a little story about how I met my husband. He's Australian. I'm a US citizen. And so I was in the US when I met him, and he was in Australia. So we met on a game called Lord of the Rings Online, MMO. And we knew each other for quite a while before we actually met physically, of course, because plane tickets are expensive. And one of the things that was really important to me was that I present myself as I am. I mean, I'm not like a supermodel or anything. I feel like I'm decently okay. Like I'm appreciative of my appearance, but I'm a 55-year-old woman with short hair, and I'm short. So I don't really have a lot to work with here. So I wanted to make sure he knew that. And so when we met in person the first time in physically meeting each other, one of the things he said to me was, and I can't remember exactly the wordage, but it was that I was how I was online, like I was the same person. And I breathed a sigh of relief because I'd had an earlier experience with appearing inauthentic that lost me a friend and wound up being traumatic. And I learned definitely why you do that or why you don't do that. And hey, Mike, thanks for joining us. And that was because I tried to play Cupid. Now, before I start into this story, which is they're both in the newsletter, I'm just giving you a little bit of the background. Oh, and by the way, for anybody asking, he was a burglar and I was a hobbit. And we met at Michael Delving, and I was cooking something, and he was bumming fire off me, and that's how we met. But flash backwards, I guess, like way back. how I learned how important and also freeing and what a relief authenticity is. I had a friend who was phone dating. This is before the internet. To date myself a little bit, but I had a friend that was phone dating a guy who only lived like a couple hours away. And she was super in love with him, always talked about him. And I had the bright idea, but she would never meet him in person. And me being me, I thought I would step in there and help her get over her fear and have them meet. So I paid for her birthday. So really sucky birthday for her. And I really feel bad about this. For her birthday, I had the guy come in. And what I didn't know is she had not authentically presented herself to him. So, but I mean, like way different, like different race, different everything, different height. And she was not, she was a beautiful woman. So I don't, there was no reason to misrepresent herself. But anyways, I did not know that. I had them meet as a surprise. It was incredibly awkward, and she didn't want to be friends after that. I'm going to say understandably. It was very young and stupid thing for me to do. And also, like, thank goodness that's the only thing that happened, because we didn't know who this guy was that I was inviting into our lives, a stranger, phone relationship. I think they'd actually met in a newspaper, like one of those desperately seeking things. But anyways, going back to the story about how I met my husband, that's why it was so important for me that he, what I was selling, what I was representing was truthful. And that is exactly what he received. I'm going to turn the light on real quick. Last glimpse of the sunset out there. But so that's what we have to do in writing as well. We don't want to misrepresent ourselves. And there's, when you show up authentically, um, it's not only freeing, but when you invariably meet people at the conventions and stuff or at book signings, you also don't have to worry about anything. And then the post this week talks about that. That's what we've been essentially talking about all month, is how to show up authentically in your writing, and how you're being clear about your motivations and clear about who you are. So that's the first place to start, is with you finding out who you are, so that you can then bring that into your art and your writing. And when you do that, you call the people that will resonate with you. Like, that is how you find your fan base. You don't want everybody to read you. You want the right people to read your work. You don't need everybody to be a fan. You just need the people who your voice speaks to be a fan. And that's kind of like a short change that we get, I think, is this kind of this lie and this myth that we need everybody to like us and everybody to love our writing and everybody to resonate with us. No, just the people who would, the people who would be our audience. So, and that comes naturally from knowing who you are and then showing up as that person in your writing. So I like to give a couple of tips in every newsletter. And so we talked about bios a little bit. I actually had some good questions about bios, and we're getting ready to get to the Ask Me Anything questions. But bios are a good place to show up as yourself authentically, because there's, every author's got a bio and most of them read the same. It's you showing those little details that are you. Um, and I don't mean just going like, and I have 5 dogs and da 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 da. I mean, 5 dogs is pretty interesting to have, honestly, but it's showing the things that matter to you, not necessarily who you are. And so, you know, it's one of my pet peeves when I see bios that are really just a listing of every place you've been published. I don't want to offend anybody, but that's probably the least interesting thing about you in your bio. When I read those, my eyes just automatically scan over that. I mean, it's essentially just a bunch of magazine and anthology names. Like, it doesn't touch me. It doesn't make me feel anything. It doesn't connect me to you, because I could go through the library and read all those names. I go through Locust Magazine and read all those names. I'm definitely not touched. It's just news. Um, so when you're writing your bio, this is a great place to practice showing up authentically. Like I said, you could say you have 5 dogs, but I mean, I can't imagine your 5 dogs would not be important to you, but if that is not a defining factor of your life, I wouldn't put it. For a long time, I would put that I was a newspaper reporter before I had any kind of awards or anything to add, because that's one of the other questions I got this week was, well, what if you don't have anything to say in your bio? Are you a human being? Then you have something to say in your bio. You have something interesting to say. If I had nothing else interesting to say, I could put that I live in Brazil, that I'm a US citizen living in Brazil. I could say I'm a US citizen married to an Australian living in Brazil. That's pretty interesting. Doesn't have to be about the books. I would rather have that in there than 5 magazines that I got published in. I would rather have that I named my Chihuahua Chupacabra than list 5 magazines. I think that somebody would resonate more with knowing that my dog was named Chupacabra than uh, knowing the list of magazines and places I've been published. So, I was actually like, where is Chupacabra anyways? He's usually right here. So that's one thing I'll say about a bio. It's not your resume. It shouldn't just be all the things that you've done and you've been published in. Make sure that it is showing you authentically. Don't worry about being perfect. Who cares? Nobody wants you to be perfect. Being perfect actually, I think, makes you unpopular. Like, I tend to, I'm not going to say unpopular, but I tend to not feel very close and connected to people that are perfect because I don't understand what that's like. And also, I probably don't really believe it because who is perfect? You know, so don't worry about who you are and, um, and that it falls short. I mean, look at me. I am a short, speaking of falling short, I am a short 55-year-old woman with a terrible sense of fashion. But that's okay because that's who I am. And I like my sense of fashion. So as long as it's not offensive, that's me. And then the third tip I gave was to write boldly and submit bravely. And that goes back to you don't need all the readers. You don't need every editor to like every single thing that you have. But you do want the right ones, the ones that will resonate with you, the ones that are speaking your language. And so I think that's part of the magic of being authentic is you naturally attract those people. And yeah, thank you, Sean. Life is messy. Life has a lot of flavor. I agree. Yeah, if we were all alike, we would just be a bunch of Barbie and Ken dolls. And like, really, those were boring even as a kid to play with. So that was what I talked about this week. And again, we're going to switch over to book marketing without being disgusting for May. That's what we're going to be talking about in May. But to wrap up this one, I actually remembered to write down these questions that I got through the week. And if you want to ask me a question about anything to do with coaching or writing or really anything, I can't promise I will have the answer, but I would definitely try to answer it. But especially writing and stuff and coaching, feel free to send it in to me through the opportunities at substack.com. But I did write down my 3 favorite questions to answer this week. They went really well with this week's topic. And the first one was, how can I overcome anxiety around being authentic when sharing my work online and through submissions? I'm going to say, if you're being authentic, you're going to have a passion for that. So you're not going to have to fake it. And that is where I feel like the anxiety comes from. Honestly, I think the root of the anxiety is me feeling, me or anybody, feeling like we have to pretend to be somebody that we're not, and we're going to fall short. And we probably will because we are not that person. So that's how I would say you overcome anxiety around being authentic with your writing online and through submissions is by just being authentic, and yet that passion will take over. And I can be really, really nervous about something, and then somebody will ask me something about one of my books, which I feel passionate about, and I get into the story and I get into the characters and like why they are like a thing, why they do the things that they do, or, what was my greater mission behind writing such and such book. And man, I'm gone. There's no nervousness. I am deeply involved in that conversation because we're talking about something that is authentically something that I'm passionate about. So that is how I would say you can overcome that anxiety by just authenticity. See, I can't even talking about mistakes. Authenticity always trumps. Ooh, did I even say that word? Sorry. Authenticity always wins. We'll say always wins. That is always the best way to go. All right. So next question was, and I only took three. I can't answer all of them, but I took three that were my favorites. Um, Not that the others were not my favorites. But this one was, what common mistakes do I see writers make when crafting their online bios? And oh, right. And I did kind of cover that already, but I love that because it is my, thank you, Sean. Yeah, the language is hard. That's why I became a writer. My tongue never wants to say the words. But talking about bios, I guess I kind of answered that already because this is something I feel passionate about. But you, when you look at a bio, and this is my opinion of bios, and this is the way I think of bios, but it's a little bit, if you want to talk about marketing, it's marketing. It's a little bit of a sales thing because you're hoping that somebody read your work and liked it enough to read your bio and want to find out more about you. Or they read your bio and they liked the bio enough to want to go find out more about your work and you as well. So, things that I see with bios that I don't like, the really, really long bios that have everything that an author has ever published and every award they've ever won. I I don't know about you, but I guarantee I'm not reading that. I'm not reading it, and I probably kind of don't care because I want to read the story. I want to read who you are, not your accomplishments. And that's my 2 cents. And maybe somebody else feels completely differently about it. But I would say that's a common mistake that I see as a publisher. I also see writers doing very dry bios, and I don't mean to have the really weird bios that, because the point is communicating, right? We want to communicate who we are authentically to whoever's reading this bio. So there are the weird bios that you're like, what? You know, uh, John Smith is a space alien by day and a vampire by night, and only writes in Garamond uppercase lettering in blood. You know, I would read that bio and I would just kind of be like, not really. I'm intrigued, but maybe not in a good way. But I definitely don't really want to go read more of that work because I'm just kind of like, the bio is exciting enough, I guess. I feel satisfied. By the same token, you don't want your bio to be so dry that it's like, Sally Smith writes fiction for speculative magazines. You can find out more at blah blah blah. So that's what I mean. There's like a nice little balance of putting tell me your dog's name Chupacabra, or anything interesting. Where do you live? What is your career? How long have you been writing? Things like that are the interesting things that the goal is to connect as a person. And so that is the point of the bio, I think, and the mistake that gets made a lot is just not connecting and connecting authentically, which is what we're talking about. And then the final question that I thought was really good was, how do you balance being authentic without oversharing? And I love this one because, yeah, that's a trick and a balance. And so my rule of thumb is this helpful to know to other people? And that's where I draw the line. If what I had for breakfast today is probably not going to be very helpful to anybody, uh, except maybe my husband, because he wants to know how many eggs are left in the fridge. But what I had for breakfast is not going to most likely be helpful information to anybody. So I don't need to share that. That's funny. Thank you. I'm glad that you're liking this. Oh, and I guess I should say I have a bio reboot kit download in the newsletter this week. If you want to reboot your bio, it's a bunch of stuff that we're talking about and some other stuff like that. Um, but going back to answering this question, sharing publicly without oversharing. The rule of thumb for me is it useful information? I share a personal story in about every issue because I want to show how what I'm saying is personally connecting with me. And so today I talked about how I met my husband and why being authentic was important. Um, that story wouldn't have mattered last week. I can't remember what I wrote about last week, but it wouldn't have been pertinent, so it wouldn't have belonged in that one. Me telling you what my husband and I did after we met that night is probably also not pertinent unless I'm writing a romance or something with a little bit of sauciness in it. Um, doesn't need to know. That would be oversharing territory. So that's kind of like the need to know basis, I think, can keep us from the oversharing territory. But sharing, I don't really have any secrets or anything that I would dread getting out on the internet, maybe. Well, I mean, everybody does, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head. If there's a reason for me to share it, I would share it. If it doesn't have anything to do with what I'm talking about or the message that I'm trying to communicate, which is the bottom line of everything, is we are trying to communicate. Whatever medium of art that we are using, be it words or watercolors, the point is we're trying to communicate something. And if it doesn't help that communication go through, doesn't need to be there. Which is where you get into that whole kill your darlings, axe it, doesn't need to be there because it will slow everything down. And that's it. That is it for this week. Um, I hope you all like this themed content that I've been doing. I I really wanted to have more of a focused direction with my newsletter, which is why I've started doing the themes and everything. And I'm reading Timothy's comments right now. He's made that mistake with Marge's invite to the HWA blog. The title went like, "Who the fuck is he?" or something like that after the scholarship. Yeah, I actually didn't read that. That's pretty funny though. Now I'm gonna go find that, Timothy. But yeah, the point is just communicating. But you just hooked me, by the way, because now I have to go find that blog post and read it. So, but yeah, I do want to thank you all for joining me. I'm pretty new at the Substack Live thing, as I guess we all are, because it hasn't been around that long. So I'm still trying to figure out little things like, does it have to email everybody on my list every time? Because I would probably do a live every day because they're kind of fun if I'm not spamming everybody with emails. Um, and getting something to hold the phone so I'm not like, which is kind of what's going on now because I'm trying to hold up the phone for half an hour and keep it straight. But we'll just get better and better. But I just want to let y'all know perfection is not the goal, communication is. And so if I've communicated today, I'm happy and I will put this to rest. And thank you, Sean. Yeah, it's a lot to get used to. I think I've done like 2 or 3 lives in my entire life on Instagram for poetry. And yeah, Substack, it's not different, but it is different for some reason. I think because of Substack, people are different. I mean, just I'm a huge fan of Substack. It has been an amazing platform to get to know. So, but that is it. I invite you to, I'm going to link after this goes up into the archive, I guess. I will link like the blog, the posts they just talked about and some of that stuff. And I will share next week's theme for May, which again is basically just how to market without being gross about marketing. And also spending a lot of time. That's my other thing about marketing is I do not exist on this world, in this world, and on this world to market stuff. I exist to write stuff. And marketing is a byproduct of the fact that I have some writing that I want people to read, period. And so I don't want to spend a lot of time marketing. So If I'm sharing anything I've learned about marketing, it is going to be fast and effective because I also don't want to waste my time. So I'm I'm reading and leading the last of the messages. And yeah, thank you so much for guys. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for hanging around and watching me move my camera all over the place frenetically. Thanks for sending in your questions. I am trying to answer all the questions I don't get to say on air, or I guess we're on air, whatever this is, on live. Um, I am trying to answer them personally, but if I don't get to you, feel free to poke me because I get a bunch of emails and they do get buried sometimes. I never mind second reminders or even third reminders. Like a good hobbit, second breakfast, second reminders. It's all good. But on that incredibly succinct note, I will retire and go eat a cookie and finish watching the sunset because I see a little bit of it left. That's my favorite time when it starts getting all purple. So maybe that's. Oh, and there's Chupacabra. Hey, Choopy. He lives under the desk. And I will sign off with this beautiful sunset. All right. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining. And I will talk to you next week about the same time.